Welcome to Untapped Keg, podcast where we explore different perspectives into sobriety, mental health, where we believe there's only one right way to sobriety. That's the way that works for you. I'm one of your hosts, or your host, RJ Zimmerman, and I have the pleasure of being here today with Michelle Regini, um, podcast host of We Recover Loudly, and just an awesome person who's really doing a lot in the space to normalize the conversation around sobriety, alcohol free, recovery, whatever verbiage you want to use that works for you, please use it. And talking about it from a perspective of the hospitality industry and servers and bartenders and cooks and hotels, everything that has to do with that. And it's really wonderful. So how are you doing today, Shell? Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Absolutely nailed the surname, by the way. Nailed it.
Yes. I'm so glad we went over it beforehand too, because I would have not.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. And then people go, "Oh, are you Italian?" And I have to say, no. No, I'm not. But apparently my ancestors were. But yeah, no, thank you so much. It's lovely to be here to connect and talk about all things that are. And I love that intro when you said about whatever word works for you, because that's really what it's about, isn't it? It's whatever works for you, whatever. And it's a daily thing, whatever works for you today as well. I think it's really important that people realize it's all right to change their perspectives, change what they do as it suits, enough of these labels, man.
Yeah. And as somebody I started with I don't drink. I went to, I'm an alcoholic, I'm sober, I'm in recovery, alcohol free. And now I'm just like, whatever you want to say. I just don't partake in alcohol. I honestly don't care anymore. Like you said, labels. But the important thing that I want people to take away is like, it is what works for you in life and this journey. Because when you take that experimental approach, instead of it has to be this way, it turns into something that you can have fun with. Who thought that this could be fun?
Yeah, definitely. And I think although there is still work to do, there is far more openness in being able to just say, I'm not drinking today, without there being that pressure. And like you just said about fun, it's like, oh, I'm actually going to try one of these non-alcoholic gins, and it becomes a bit of a curiosity, and it's exciting, and because it's a new flavor and a new experience. And I have so many of my friends who drink, and my parents who will now kind of partake in these, like you said, almost like we're going to try this new thing. The fact it's got no alcohol doesn't cross their mind, which obviously is baffling to somebody like me who is a recovering addict, or again, whatever you want to call. I also changed my labels. Today I'm just Shell, but certainly 2 years ago, when I first started on this abstinence journey, I was a chronically emotionally dependent drinker. I wasn't using drugs at the time, but yeah, certainly alcohol. But yeah, it's certainly it's a great time to be sober, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. And beforehand, we were talking a lot about the NA beer space and how the big companies are getting involved because there's money in there. And like you have Heineken Zero, which is a solid beer and it tastes really good. And you have Bud Zero, which they can kind of keep them, it's kind of is what it is as far as an NA beer goes. But these microbrewed like IPAs, there's a lot of different lagers out there that if you do miss a taste of beer, you can have that flavor without having the effects of it on your mind and your body.
100%. And do you know what's strange? I never used to drink beer when I was a drinker, because I didn't like the amount of liquid that you had to consume to get the buzz. Like, I'm a girl, I don't like being bloated, I like my tummy to be, all of those kind of things. And um, you really have to go hard on beer if you want to get like absolutely annihilated. Obviously, until craft came in, and there are some incredibly strong like IPAs and stuff like that. But on a whole, now I don't drink. bloody love a non-alcoholic beer. It's really strange. And like you've mentioned, there's some beautiful, amazing breweries. There are, I mean, let's be clear, is Bud delicious with alcohol? I
I
mean,
I, I would say
nah.
no. It's not for
Yeah,
me.
so I
So
mean, in that case, it's sticking with its it's pretty brand consistent in that respect.
yeah.
Um, but there are, I mean, over in the UK, we've got a brewery called Mash Gang, who are just, I'm obsessed with it at the moment, and their labels are the coolest, and it's very skater, graffiti, and just like you look at them and you think, "Oh, I want to hang out with them, I want to be them." There's this image that you want to not necessarily emulate, but gravitate towards, which is so different to 10 years ago, 5 years ago, where it would be a under the kind of hand of a if you got any non-alcoholic, and you say it with such shame, and when they look at you like a piece of, like, extraterrestrial, you go, "Oh, sorry, I said Coke. What did you hear? I asked for a Coke." And you kind of walk away. It's like that, it's like when you wave at somebody and then it turns out they're not waving at you back and you just awkwardly hide your hand. It's a bit like that back then when you ordered non-alcoholic. Whereas
Oh,
now, it's not only do you demand, you can demand it, you get feisty when they have shit. You can be like, well, I'm leaving. Love that.
oh, absolutely. And you don't go up to those people and hug them and say, "Oh, I saw you waving to me, so here's a hug. I appreciate it."
Absolutely. Oh God, the shame. Why is that
Right.
so awkward?
And I honestly don't know why it's so awkward, but when you were saying that, it's like it comes back like that embarrassment, like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
a dork. Why
I
would you be
literally
waving at
feel a
me?
little
I
bit,
don't know.
yeah, I feel a little bit nauseous just thinking about it. But
Um,
yeah, that
what
turns out you get sober, you're still an absolute loser.
it's actually funny you say that because I was gonna bring up you brought up the Mash Gang, is that what it's called? The
Mm,
brewery. So my favorite one, which is actually local to Virginia where I am, is called Uncool. And their byline is, let's be honest, it might be uncool to not drink. So why not embrace it and have something that tastes
yeah.
good while you're being uncool? And it's like, at first I saw it, I'm like, really? There's already the stigma around like drinking and not being cool and all that. And then I saw the lines and I'm like, okay, this is actually really awesome. And it tastes incredible. It is such a good beer. Like just straight up a good beer.
Yeah. Well, it's subculture, really, isn't it? If you think about it, it's like subcultures becoming mainstream, which is very much like, like we were just saying, like that kind of skateboarding, graffiti, straight edge,
Yeah.
that kind of scene from many years ago. And
Yeah.
it is becoming cool. And again, we were discussing beforehand whether or not there is when things suddenly become mainstream and people realize they can profit, sometimes the little guy gets lost in that, which is something that I hope we don't see happen. There is obviously the benefits of things becoming mainstream because, like we were saying, it means that there's demand, it means that there's volume, it means that ingredients might become a little bit cheaper and these smaller brands can get access to things that they may not have before. But there is a small part of me that does kind of miss the fact that it's not, I kind of liked being a bit of an uncool, like that edginess. And now everyone, now your bloody mum's drinking a non-alcoholic gin. I'm like, oh great. It's not cool.
It's like that little bit. I liked it before it was cool, right? Like I
Right?
discovered it first.
Literally, I mean, I didn't want to go there, but I kind of did. Like Laura Silverman, the incredible Zero Proof Nation, Laura Silverman, she was 16 years sober this year. And 16 years ago, there was just nothing. It was just a wasteland. And she's a huge part of the community. And yet I do wonder often if she's kind of looking around being like, where were you guys when it was me and a tap water and that was it? And we're all here now enjoying the fact that she's put in the hard work for all these years and created these spaces, and we just get to float in and enjoy our non-alcoholic, beers, and she's just there going, I remember, the veteran of the non-alcoholic.
Back in my day.
Back in my day. Exactly. I think there needs to be way more respect for the pioneers of the non-alcoholic movement. I think that we all need to respect and recognize that we would not be here had it not been for their hard work, and their enjoyment of appalling substitutes, or lack of enjoyment of appalling substitutes, and demanding more, because that is why, I've got in my fridge, I've got like 3 or 4 different non-alcoholic bits and bobs. I was at an event with the Alcohol Free Drink Company, which is an English a stockist in the UK. And like, just that's mental. The fact that I've got 2 RTDs, I've got a bottle of non-alcoholic fizz, I've got an aperitivo alternative. Like, that's mental
Yeah.
and just so wondrous at the same time.
And so when I got stopped drinking and got sober, it was O'Doul's or nothing. And then, or I think St. Pauli girl might have had a NA, but it was anyway. About, I don't know, about a year ago, I went to a restaurant and I asked them, hey, how about we explore some of these NA beer and get some decent NA drinks on your menu? And they were all in, to the point that they contacted their distributor and they brought in a taste test of non-alcoholic whiskey, non-alcoholic gin, non-alcoholic tequila, rum, all of this, and then mixing them to come up with drinks that actually tasted good. And I'm like, I had no idea any of this existed. And now you're starting to see it get more of a notice. I think the last year's been unreal with how much advertisement, how much you've been able to really see these drinks come in. They give us a choice we didn't know that we had, and just how good they are. It is unreal. And
yeah,
it's just,
and yet,
as I said, the creativity now, the imagination, that's the limit.
oh God, yeah. And the cool thing as well is that things are getting created that aren't just straight copies. So it's not like, here is your non-alcoholic tequila. We're creating these amazing brand new flavors that have never been used before. And there's again, like with veganism, when suddenly everyone was roasting cauliflower and going like, what the hell? You can roast this thing? It's a little bit like that now with the non-alcoholic stuff. It's like, it's not just about like going like, here is the meat and here is the meat alternative. It's like, right, let's look at these raw ingredients and actually really see what we can do with them, which is amazing. But what I was going to say is that I do still think, though, that when it comes to actually serving these drinks, serving them safely, and having a consistent kind of narrative that this is something that should and must be on your menus, we've still got a way to go, because
yes,
there are still far significantly more venues that are not accommodating, to their detriment, because it is a no-brainer when it comes to making sales, to making profits. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing over the next kind of 12 months to a couple of years. I think we're going to carry on making these amazing products, but let's see what the hospitality industry actually does in terms of engaging and selling it now. Because it's,
yeah,
otherwise and it's a real shame the amount of times I go to restaurants and there's just nothing. And you think, well, okay, I guess I'll keep my money. It's people are leaving money on the table.
absolutely. I mean, an example of this is on my birthday, I went to my favorite restaurant and they just added some NA stuff. And usually I would get a water free. Well, they added some mocktails to it. So I'm like, you know what? I'll try one. And it's, I don't know, $7, $8. So you get $7 or $8 per drink that I was just going to go with a water and zero. And that adds up really quickly when you start to look at people who don't drink, don't want to drink. There's multiple reasons for why
Oh
people
God,
don't
yeah.
drink. Yeah. And so, as people start to realize, I can't remember the number. I feel like it was by 2030, the non-alcoholic industry, they were looking at like $25 billion of it being the industry now. And
Yeah. Wow.
I want to say it's like at five. So they're looking at that big of an increase. And it might be more than that. And I might be,
Mm.
missing a zero, but it really is exploding right now. And it makes it fun.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like, look, we talk about the pioneers of the individuals of the NA scene. It's again, it feels like we're at that time where there are some big restaurant groups or big pub groups, cocktail groups that can really make a decision now to be known as one of the first people that are going to embrace something that might feel like a trend, again, like veganism, but is actually not going anywhere. There's a organization called Cam Media who does incredible insight reporting and data collection, and they did a report in partnership with Lucky Saint, and they, as part of that data, they speculated, I suppose, but in a very kind of educated way, that £800 million was lost last year to tap water. That's £800 million that we could have been putting into businesses' tills, but because they didn't have anything on offer that was worth us putting our hand in our pocket for, people go for tap water. And I think that's absolutely true. I know I do it myself. And then you've got people who don't drink also often choose where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Massive. That's a huge thing. So they're the people that you want to be flirting with. And then recently as well, I read that I think it's actually it might have been in Cam Media. 1 in 3 visits to the pub is not an alcoholic drink based visit. So that's 1 in 3, and these are just people who also drink. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's again where we're missing a beat. Like again, I saw it again, a ridiculous statistic. Something like 73% of people who drink non-alcoholic beer drink beer. That's mad.
Right. I mean, just think about like if you go to lunch, like networking lunch or something like that, and you have to go back to work, you can't be under the influence. So an NA drink, any kind of NA drink, it's there are so many opportunities that are completely missed out on. And it's great that people are exploring it now and looking into the actual numbers behind it, because that's what is going to promote the change. That's what's going to really get it to a point where it's sustained and it's not just, that flash in the pan kind of like what we've been talking.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things that we kind of talk about on We Recover Loudly and in the consulting work that we do as well, with our sister company, Hospitality Raw, is that it's all very well businesses putting things on the shelves or putting things on menus, but if they don't educate the team on what those products are, why they're priced the way they are, where they've come from, their origins, the craftsmanship, as well as how to serve them safely, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're right, you will get in 3 or 4 non-alcoholic spirit alternatives and not sell any, because they stick it on the back of the menu, like like right in the back corner with and other things, and it's things like that that as an industry we need to start really examining, not just what we're putting on the menu and in our buildings, but how are we educating our team and how are we selling it? Because you're right, if you get those things in, you just stick it at the back of the menu with any other business, like the kids drinks. That's a classic one, when they're at the back
Yeah.
next to the cleats menu.
Yep.
no one is gonna no one is gonna engage in that. And again, that's, I think, where people miss a trick. And it's not hard to get your team excited about these products because they are exciting. It just
Yeah.
takes a little bit of that kind of consideration or effort or
And I saw a restaurant, they had a bunch of NA options. They didn't even put it on their menu. And then they're like, well, I don't know if we're going to continue carrying these because nobody's ordering them. I'm like, do people know you have them? I'm not, I'm
yeah.
not a rocket surgeon, but or a brain
Oh my
scientist.
God, yeah.
But
It's so
it's
true as well.
and I was just like, I think if you'd put it on a menu somewhere that people might order it.
Yeah, it's mental. Or even better, it's actually not on the till, so I can't sell it. Like,
Oh
so it's on the
goodness.
menu, it's on the bar, but it's not on the till. Because things like that, which just blow your mind. And it's, it's also it's very relevant when it kind of we talk about with We Recover Loudly, that my podcast, which is all about shaking up these conversations about our drinking and drug taking culture in the hospitality industry, which is a hugely silent pandemic, in as much as there are so many people affected by addiction in our industry who will sadly either just leave our industry and go work elsewhere because they can't be around the incessant kind of environment that we claim to be normality, and it's just hospitality, or far more serious, people are losing their lives to not just addiction but the mental health conditions that are adjacent to that. If we start taking the non-alcoholic sector seriously as a product that we're selling and making money from, I feel that there is going to be an obvious and beneficial knock-on effect as well, because suddenly the culture is not just about excess and oblivion. We're becoming more considered and mindful in what we're selling our guests. I think it's only natural, unless I'm holding on to a dream, but I feel it's only natural that that will hopefully start to make those changes, because it's a really really it's really scary to see how many people are affected, and more scary how little is being done to change on the whole.
Yeah. And that's something that is, it's a testament to what you're doing, that you're not just talking about it from, an addiction and a substance, but also the mental health, because the mental health is such a massive part of any of this conversation that we have overlooked for so long. And that's the reason that this isn't just a sobriety podcast, but sobriety and mental health, because it turns out that we would look at alcohol or drugs as the reason for our mental health, when really it's a side effect to our mental health. And if we're honest about that, if we start to get away
100%.
from, yeah, if we start to get away from that's the cause, and we start to actually look at what might be underlying, or just being
Mm.
honest and having these conversations, you don't feel alone. Wow. I really do believe that what you just said is true, and it will make a difference in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, like, I've gone through a 12-step program, and we talk about in that alcohol was never the problem, it was the solution. And I
Yes.
really I very viscerally relate to that. And when I sit down in I've got just over 2 years, but I still regularly go to meetings because I've built this incredible, you were just saying about being alone. I've built this incredible community of friends, people that I've got real honest raw connection with, which I've never had in my entire life. So people say, why do you keep going back? I go back because of this. I've met my people, I've got my tribe. um, but when you sit in these rooms of recovery and you look around at these 12-step rooms, you're not looking around at a bunch of 15, 20 degenerates and addicts. You're looking at a group of really really strong but traumatized, affected people who have had different variances of horrendous things happen to them, or undiagnosed things, and I'm sure we'll get into it. We both got ADHD, and we've been
Yeah.
diagnosed later in life. The things that have happened with that, as well as just there's so much going on behind the surface, that when you take the alcohol away, and if we look at it relating to hospitality, the stress, the pressure, the relentless hours, the lack of flexibility to be allowed to have a life outside of work, the appalling conditions, which again, there are improvements, things are getting better, but let's be honest, it's very easy for us to think that we've done that little tick box and walk away. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a huge project and it's going to take a little bit longer than, a few months. You take all the alcohol away, and what are you left with? You are still left with that team member or that person in the room who has got all of the reasons that they found themselves. And like you say, that's where we need to start putting in safeguarding and support and education and all of that. It's not about just taking the drinks. Oh, let's stop after work drinks. Stop after work drinks, everybody at the restaurant. We won't have any more addicts. Don't you worry. We have sorted that problem. That's not how it works. Yes, that's a big part of it. Making it so, yeah, it isn't okay to get absolutely off your face on a Monday night. Like, that's definitely part of it. But like you said, we really need to have a little look and see, why have we got so many people reaching that over and over and over across the world in our industry, and
Yeah.
outside of it.
And what you said about community and connection is very much the root. And I like to go like a step deeper than connection and say it's about that self connection, because you are so disconnected with yourself. And as you mentioned, we both later diagnosis of ADHD. You want to talk about self disconnection, going through life wondering why things are challenges for yourself that other people, they might have somewhat challenges, but it's not as heavy as yours. And it's not an even simple task. And all of a sudden you get diagnosed with ADHD and you're like, oh, and then you start to actually learn the symptoms and just understand it's not a bunch of squirrel moments or that you can't sit still doing things. It's deeper than that. And when you can give yourself that grace and connect with yourself, it makes the ability to make a change and understand. Like, I understood why the first time I got drunk, I had that, oh, this is incredible. I didn't understand before I got diagnosed with ADHD what it was. Now I know. It shut my brain up. It was like putting on noise canceling headphones for the first time,
Oh
and
my
you're in a
God, yeah.
loud area, and all of a sudden, like, it's just you, just your thoughts. Like your thoughts are like not there anymore. Oh,
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to have some quiet. Huh.
Yeah. It is. And it's not just that you're turning off the voices, you're turning off the negative voices. This is very
Yes.
well documented that the voice that people with ADHD have in their head or and autism, that neurodiversity spectrum,
Yes.
is always against the negative, because the characteristics that we have, which are so forward facing, are characteristics that are typically not celebrated, weirdly enough. And we spend our entire lives being told that who we are is not okay, and of course you internalize that. Now add to that the hospitality industry, where in putting on a show, putting on a mask, putting the customer first, denying your own wants and needs is all part of the day, part of a month, part of a casual Tuesday. Get home, take that off, and it's the screaming negativity that you just can't escape. And I mean, for me it was exactly the same with drinking and with substance use. That was the first time ever when I was using cocaine that I actually felt peace. I was calm, I was quiet, and I used to fall asleep and I would have a blissful evening, because what's it called? Big shock, everybody. The ADHD medication
Right. Stimulant.
is a stimulant. And so now the medication that I take has that same effect that these illegal substances have. But again, I think there's having that understanding of self and realizing. I used to be so ashamed about the fact that that was the way that I would use class A drugs and nobody else did, and it was a secret. And now you kind of say it to other people who have been diagnosed and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, I always used to fall asleep at parties. No one ever like, and I was like, oh, okay. And it's just, I mean, my ADHD coach last week said that, I think she said 71 or 72% of people in the hospitality industry are neurodiverse. It's one of the top industries, as well as policemen, which I thought was quite interesting. Armed services, policemen, emergency services. She said hospitality, and I can't remember the other one now off the top of my head.
Would it be blue collar like trades?
maybe something manual. So
Yeah.
that you've got an industry that is full of people who think that they're the biggest piece of shit in the world 99% of the time, in an environment where they're getting a constant stream of feedback without any kind of support, awareness, training on how to process both the good and the bad on a stage where we're masking, and then you go, hey, who wants a drink? And then we're surprised. And I don't think that, I think for me that feels like a missing link almost, that I'm really hoping having these conversations that where people realize that we're not just dealing with people who have alcohol and drug problems in our industry. We're dealing with a huge community of people who are neurodiverse, who are highly susceptible to addiction. I mean, it's almost like one for one, isn't it? Like these
It
days.
really is. Yeah.
I know, literally. I go to AA. I'm like, am I in AA or ADHD right now? What's going on? Like, and how many more letters do I need? And again, it's like, while we're busy kind of like playing catch up and going like, no way, I was so surprised this has happened again. Someone's burnt out. Yeah, people with ADHD burn out. We don't know. It's right now. I've been awake for about, let's say, I've been up for like 10 hours and I haven't eaten yet, and I've had one glass of water. Like, because I've been working, and you do, like, that's what people with ADHD do. We just go. So we're fucking brilliant for the industry
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't
until we drop.
realize, and that is such an amazing point. Like before I got diagnosed, I didn't realize the fact that I wouldn't eat was related to um my ADHD. Like people would be like, "Hey, can we stop to eat?" And I'm like, "Really? You're hungry? We could go do this." No, yeah, we're hungry. I don't think I could eat right now, but okay, let's go eat. Like if people didn't tell me that, I'm working
Mm,
without there in college, I would go the entire day because without eating because I'm doing, I'm sometimes going to class, other times yeah, playing video games with the guys, like doing all this, going to play basketball, do all this stuff. And I get to 10, 11 o'clock at night and I'm like, oh, what have I eaten today? I'm kind of hungry. Oh, wait,
mm.
I skipped it. Shoot. So then and
Yeah.
you tell people about that and they're like, that's weird. How do you not get hungry? But when you learn it's part of ADHD, it's like,
Mm,
oh, okay, now I have that understanding. And then that's the other thing about ADHD. When you tell people you have it, the amount of people that look at you like, oh, you're just telling me the excuse up front. And it's like, no, I am telling you that I have ADHD. So there are symptoms, there are things that I need to do quicker. I can't just let it sit. There are things that, like, if you ask me to do something and you tell me and you see I'm in the middle of something and I'm not writing it down,
yeah.
write it down for me because I'm not going to remember otherwise. And you caught me in a
Mm.
moment of hyper focus. I literally did not hear what you said. I just said, okay, so that you'll let me go back to what I'm doing. And the amount of people that are like, well, why are you using that as an excuse? It's like, no, that's a blueprint. That's an understanding of
Mm.
me so that you can understand sometimes when I struggle with something, it's not an excuse. There could be a reason, and there's things that we can do that you can also help me with if you get curious that will make it easier for both of us.
And I think that that is going to be a massive, massive training need in our industry, in hospitality, because for exactly that reason, the things that I used to fail at, the things that I used to drink on, the things, that I would ruminate on were frequently things that now I know I've got ADHD. I understand, like, there'd be a joke that I would always do the rota really last minute. Because I didn't want to sit down. I couldn't focus on it. I found it really boring. And because I found it
Yep.
boring, I couldn't do it until I suddenly, for whatever reason, found it interesting, probably because I added more colors. And then I do like 4 weeks 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and they'd be like, Shell, you need to run the restaurant. I mean, like, we joke, but like, I could hold a room and hold a team and create an incredible experience. But if table two asked me for ketchup, no fucking way they're getting it, because I have forgotten the moment I walked away. Or like, and you know, like, you'd have the waiter come over from that section going, table two said they asked you for ketchup, and I'd have to do that manager thing of going like, I don't think they did. Table two. You know, and try and cover my tracks. And it used to be really difficult because I always used to have either pink or blue or purple hair, and therefore it was quite obvious when they said, no, we asked the girl with pink hair, and I'd be like, damn it, shut up. And it is, and I think again, it's like, even so, just even little things like that, making it, I mean, we're now moving into a technology where we use technology more in hospitality when it comes to order taking. Everything's now done on a phone or a pad. And actually, if you are to ask me something walking past, you're right. I would need to write that down. Now, if as a waiter we're no longer using pads and pens and we don't have that as part of our kit, where are we writing it down? How are we remembering it? We can't go get the iPad just to write down something like that. So again, are we equipping our teams in just even that very small way to succeed? Because you're right. If I had written down at table two, or if my ego had allowed me, because I used to think I could remember everything, like, no drama, got that.
That's not
Then
just you,
yeah,
that's a
maybe
me thing
table
too.
yeah, I mean, maybe table two would finally have to catch up. It was still sat waiting. But yeah, I think that is going to be a massive thing that as an industry we can no longer continue to look away from. That addiction is huge. ADHD, neurodiversity is huge. Put those hands together and let's start putting in some actual protocols that safeguard both communities who also seem to coexist with each other, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Hard.
it's
Sounds easy, right?
well, and what you just brought up about the knowing how to do it, like knowing to remember things. So I was a line tech, so I worked high voltage. I did that. Oh, I did it once. I know how to do it. Yep. And so we're doing something and we go to turn on the power, turn it on, and nothing's happening. What? We did everything that we were supposed to do. Do you have the instructions? No, I threw those away. We don't need those. What do you think we need those for? So dig them out of the trash. Actually, I think we called somebody who did it before, and they're like, "Oh yeah, did you forget to flip this switch? What switch? There's a switch in there that you have to flip. That the directions say right on the front. Make sure that you turn this on before." And it's like, oh, I didn't. Yeah. Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So it just made me
It
think of that.
is. Yeah, it is. And it's just like this. People call it absent-mindedness, but in a weird way, it's like I always feel like you have to have more involvement to be absent-minded. Like it's like there's like we're not absent-minded, it's just not even existing. It's just like, you know, the amount of times that I would take a table's order, and if you ask me something else on the way to put that into the till, there's no
Yes.
chance I'm remembering to put that in on time. And you would kind of go through your little pad and go, oh my God. And then you'd have to go to the table and be like, I'm so sorry. The chef has decided he is not happy with the quality of the chicken he was about to serve you. So he's refiring it. It is all about the kitchen. It is not because I forgot to put it through. And walk up, free dessert, madam. I've just given you all of my secrets as to how to be a good restaurant manager. And you would, but the sad thing is, I mean, we can joke about it now, but the thing is that things like that were happening to me daily, and I'm a manager. I'm supposed to be, when you're a manager, you're not allowed to make mistakes because your young team will firstly quickly catch you up on that, and you know, quickly kind of like call you out, quite right too. So you would just cover your tracks and internalize it and go home and again think, oh my God, I'm a manager and yet I can't even remember to get ketchup. I am awful. I'm going to drink because I have to turn that thought process off because I can't go to bed with the amount of hatred that's in my own head, and I've got
Yeah.
to be up in 6 hours. So what am I going to do? I'm going to drown it out so that I can go to bed, so I can pass out effectively and, you know, start the next day.
Absolutely.
And it's just a really shitty cycle to be in. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who can relate to that being in that very cycle, sadly.
Yeah, same right here. Like that's such it's so true. And I didn't address it like when I first stopped drinking. It was 6 years into stopping drinking before I really started to address like, why do I look in the mirror and I hate that person? And actually, that was when I got diagnosed with ADHD, medicated, started looking into um, my mental health. But it was actually 2 years after that where I figured out that I hated myself. And that's where I've been operating from my entire life. Um, but one thing, talking about like ADHD and how our brains work, and a lot of how it manifests that people don't realize and they don't know. TikTok and Instagram have been so huge in putting it out there. And one way that it's really effective at explaining to neurotypicals what goes through a neurodivergent's head is the simple process of a morning routine. So if you ask a neurotypical person, what goes through your mind when you get up, go to the bathroom, and brush your teeth, and they'll look at you like, "What do you mean? What goes through my mind? Like, what are you playing in your head when you're doing that?" I just say, "It's time to get up." And it's like you talk to a neurodivergent, and it's okay. I need to get up. All right, I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, wash my hands, put my contacts in. All right, my contacts are in. Now I got to brush my teeth. Okay, 30 seconds on this side, 30 seconds on this
Yeah,
side.
same
And
ones.
yeah, and it's like that we narrate everything because we have to. That's
Mm,
how our brains work. So that's why
yeah.
when you all of a sudden you realize it, like how much energy that takes just to get through one routine, one habit. No wonder why it
Yeah.
takes us so long to form new habits, break old habits. Why we
Mm,
like to shut things off, because it's always talking, not just like through everything, not just the negative ones, but those negative
mm,
ones, they play on loop constantly. Just you'll walk into a room and be taken back to sixth grade when you said something really, really mean to your friend that you didn't mean to say, you didn't want to say, but your impulse control wasn't there. And so you
mm-hmm.
just said it. And now you've just confirmed that you are the biggest piece of shit that's ever existed. And it'll just keep coming back.
Yeah.
That's
And it
hard to
just
work
comes from
through.
nowhere as well. Like
Yeah.
I'll just suddenly be thinking about a memory and I'll be like, why am I even thinking about that from absolutely nowhere? And you're right, the whole routine thing, like if I don't do something the exact same way, I have been trying more and more, and I have been getting better, in fairness, the older I get, because I've got way less energy to care. But like it throws me. Like this morning, my housemate was in the bathroom. So she, how very rudely, fucked with my routine. How dare she? Um, so I came downstairs to start work and I hadn't brushed my teeth yet. Now, most people would just be like, that's fine. You'll go and brush your teeth, in half an hour, or, whatever. I sat trying to, and my brain was going, you haven't brushed your teeth, but you haven't brushed your teeth, but you haven't brushed your teeth, you haven't brushed your teeth, you haven't. And until I go, ugh, went upstairs, brushed my teeth, exactly like you said, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, all the same things. Yeah. Floss bit, same way around every day,
Yep.
left to right. I couldn't continue my day consciously focusing on that next task. And like, I think again, when it looks at hospitality and we're asking team members, I think that's where on the one hand, people with neurodiversity really shine in our industry. We're really good at doing things the same way over and over. And that's the real benefit, both back of house, front of house, on the bars, having the ability to stick to something rigidly and repetitively do it to a consistent standard is basically McDonald's. McDonald's is probably ADHD. It's kind of a weird rumor to start. However, when things throw you off that, you have to be able to learn how to either yourself pull yourself back from that, or know that you're in an environment that you can kind of share and be like, I've just been thrown off something. And because that's what we're talking about when we're talking about that take order to till, put in order, go get cutlery, put cutlery on table, whatever it is. Somebody you walk past goes like, fucked. That's it. I'm done. Like, not only do I not know what you want, I don't know what part of my brain I was on, what journey I was doing, and now I'm just completely screwed. And then they
Yeah.
look at you and go, wow, they're so ineffective as a server. And it's, again, it's things like that I think we need to have far more open conversations about. Even when it comes to alcohol, the routine of having an after work drink. And I'm not sure if you relate to this, but I would have an after work drink frequently, not because I needed one, wanted one, not that, finally I relax, but because it's after work. So I have to have a drink because that's the routine. And there's this
Yep.
compulsive element where you will sit and constantly, I'm not going to have a drink today, but you always have a drink today. Why wouldn't you have a drink today? And you're not drinking to get drunk, but you're almost drinking to tick that box off, and I
Yes.
think there's a little bit weirdly kind of gray area where it comes to what is addiction and what is a compulsion. I mean, not that it really matters at the end of the day, because we know that, but I will compulsively do things now that I don't drink with other things in an obsessive way until I overdo it, and then I'll suddenly never touch it again. And I do it a lot with food, especially. Or like teas. At one point, I was drinking so much peppermint tea, I thought I was going to explode and die in a minty extravaganza. And now I I haven't had a peppermint tea in months. I don't care anymore. Over it.
Yeah. And that's that ADHD too, where you get really into something and then you just get to a point where, all right, I'm done. And there's no rhyme or reason for that line of, all right, I'm done. I was doing yoga for 8 months and I'm like, all right, 8 months in, this is something I'm going to do. So I bought a nice mat and I bought clothes for yoga. Guess what I did as soon as they got to my house? I stopped going to yoga. And it's like, I waited. I know that this is something that happens. I know I wanted to make sure it was going to be a part of my life. And sure enough, nope.
Yeah. It is, and it is. I mean, I'm sat right now in my office next to an entire cupboard worth of crafting stuff. There's a sewing machine, there's embroidery, there's pens. At one point I was going to become, an ink drawing sketch artist. That was like for a week, and God knows what other hidden absolute
Mhm.
nonsense non-treasures is in there. Um, but again, I think if we manage to figure out ways of harnessing that passion and drive, for
Mhm.
good versus evil, as it were, in the workplace. And again, if we start to have these conversations that nurtures that aspect of how we are, find your most neurodiverse person on in the team and get them to take charge of the non-alcoholic menu, because they will sell the shit out of it.
Yeah. And
Because they will hyper focus like no one's ever done.
no kidding. And that is so true. And kind of like, going back to the ritual thing, the after work drink, like that is, we do these things that end up becoming the mark of, okay, I'm done with work. How do I signal I'm done with work? I have a drink. And so you get done with work and you don't want to have that drink, but your brain is still in work mode in it until you do that. And I heard someone talk about that and I was like, dang, I do that with so many things and I didn't realize it. And when you have that, just the awareness of it sometimes is enough to be able to get through it and maybe try doing something else. Like, let's start with a cookie. Let's have a cookie to signify I'm off work. Like, there's a nice little reward.
Let's not start with a cookie, because I am now a packet a day person. Because that other problem is there are
Yes.
no limits. And now I've just got to the point of acceptance that when I buy a packet of cookies and biscuits, I won't have one or two. I will have the whole packet. So I've now had to ban myself from buying them. Or recently I bought some that I knew I didn't like very much because I can only eat like 4 of them, and then I'm like, these are gross. Which is also just ridiculous. Like,
The things that we have to do to get through that. But I do something similar where I limit the amount of sweets in my house at one time so that it's the inconvenience of having to go buy it. Otherwise, I
mm,
will have 2 packs of cookies a night.
Yeah. But do you not feel an incredible comfort, like just wrap you up in a blanket when you know that you've got those cookies in the house versus not? Because that's been a huge thing as well. Like not having the things, like the
Yes.
levels of things that I need. Like that is a moment of bliss like no other versus right now we've just been talking about cookies and I don't have any biscuits or anything in the house, and that's now going to play on my mind for the next 2 hours going, maybe you should go get some biscuits, you haven't got any biscuits. And the relief that you get from suddenly having the thing that your brain has been like obsessing over is like having that first drink of a gin and tonic on a, after work. And because it's that dopamine release. And it's really fascinating. It's fascinating to realize that it's taken me this many years to realize that I was neurodiverse, in fairness. But again, like you say, it's one of those things that the more we know, the more awareness, the more conversations, the more that we can put in place to hopefully help ourselves, help our teams, help each other, then we can
And
start focusing on the things that are awesome about being neurodiverse, that
yeah.
creativity, the fire, the passion, the drive, the energy, we'll think up shit that ain't nobody thought of, probably because they were tied down by things like rules and regulations, health and safety, but we'll go there.
Those are guidelines, really.
Right, we've thrown them away.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's so much wonderful about so many wonderful traits in the neurodiverse community. I'm really looking forward to that being the new narrative rather than, oh yeah, he was a naughty kid, or yeah, she was a girl who internally beat herself up on a daily basis, and all of that things.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty cool, great time to be sober, great time to be neurodiverse. I mean,
Absolutely. And it's the thing too, we were talking earlier about that connection and that self connection. You give yourself the compassion because it is you, but it's how you're wired. So if that's how you're wired, maybe there's something that I can do to give me some support and work through this instead of just being mad at myself, trying to fit myself into life. I can kind of take my life a little bit and work. And if I talk to somebody about it, maybe we can kind of work some things around me and myself. And that is like, and like you said too, the outside the box thinking, the when chaos happens, right? When shit hits the fan, you want someone who's neurodiverse there because
oh yeah.
boom, on it. We might not be able to be on it in a day-to-day thing, but as soon as it's just like it's a light
Yeah.
switch. It is
Yeah.
like
Oh,
the
it
people
is.
who are calm and cool, those people are more than likely neurodiverse, to be honest.
Oh, literally, like, I mean, don't make me brush my teeth after I've had a cup of tea. I will lose it and not be able to function. However, world's about to end. I'm there. And again, that's what makes us such one amazing hospitality leaders.
Yeah.
The ability to turn a situation around, the ability to have a table of 8 walk up and go, it's my birthday, here are my balloons, and you go, sorry, what table? And the way that a chef can like look along his line and see tickets coming out of his arse and be able to see through it clearly exactly what he needs to do to turn the ship around is it's phenomenal. And again, if we talk about like the police and emergency services and all of that, that's such an incredible skill that saves lives. And again, it's something that should be celebrated. Just don't be in the bathroom when I need to do my teeth in the morning. Otherwise, nothing's happening until I do my teeth.
Hell hath no
The world will
fury.
explode. Yeah, literally. Yeah, I'll be like, Shells, the world's falling apart. It's like 1 second, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. I will be
Shell,
there.
this conversation has been incredible. Um, where can people find you and follow along? Because I know that people are going to want to connect with you after this.
So I've got the podcast We Recover Loudly is on all of your podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, and all of those. Got website, werecoverloudly.com. which is we've got kind of resources. So for people who are looking for ways of potentially looking at addiction or things, that they've got issues with, there are links to lots of different external resources. There is also our blogs on there with just interesting little articles and bits. And we are going to be launching, hopefully at the end of November, our online community, where if you work in the industry, if you are wanting to connect with people, regardless of whether or not you're sober, but if you just want to kind of have that space to talk about your substance using, your drinking, and be held in much like a peer-to-peer, well, it is peer-to-peer support. We'll be launching that very much like the lovely Ben's Friends who do it over for you guys in the US. And Ben's Friends were incredible. They're on the website as a link. And then, yeah, if you're in the UK, we've also just launched our sister company, Hospitality Raw, which will be our consulting company and training company, where we can come into your restaurants and bars and help you train your team in safe serving and non-alcoholic products and addiction awareness and all of those fab things. Actually, just the UK. God, we can do it online. We can do the US.
Yeah. Bring it.
Yeah.
Bring it. I love that.
I was restricting myself, but yeah, all of those places. And yeah, Instagram, massively. We're massive on Instagram, massively on LinkedIn as well. So again, just at We Recover Loudly on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Awesome. This has been so much fun. Just chopping it up and having a serious conversation, but in a way that shows people you can have these conversations and make headway, get some understandings while you're laughing.
Yeah. Oh, literally, I've actually had a few of my own little light bulb moments. I'm looking forward to listening back and thinking like, oh yeah, if I should have, those are things that I can be doing. And again, I think that's one of the amazing things about putting down drugs is exactly like you said. It's people say, oh, it's a return to self, but for some people, it's not even a return to self. It's a discovery of self because you've never even known.
Yeah.
And it's quite fun and it's painful, of course, and it's heartbreaking and all of that, but it's also quite fun to get to know you without trying to sound too, like a cushion.
Yeah. And I mean, that's exactly why I'm a self-discovery after alcohol coach, because that's what it was for me. I wasn't rediscovering a lot of these. It was actually discovering myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a light bulb moment when I realized, oh, I'm not using for any of this. I'm actually unlearning really unhealthy behaviors. And I'm learning for the first time new ones. I'm discovering my values, what I like to do actually, and not what people tell me I should
Mm-hmm.
like to do. And it's incredible. It really is. And
Yeah.
so having that understanding, it just again, just having the awareness of it that it is true.
Yeah.
It can help you give
Game
yourself
changer.
compassion. So
100%. Do yourself a favor, get to know yourself. You never know, you might like yourself. Mind blowing.
honestly, more than likely you will like yourself. And that's what
Yeah,
is
you'll actually prefer yourself to the douchebags you've been hanging out with, and that's a whole nother episode.
oh man, we're gonna there's the segue. Come back for part 2.
Yeah, Michelle lives in a cave because she's decided she doesn't like anyone as much as she likes herself.
That's a great place to be honest.
Yeah, no, that will not happen.
so so Shell, thank you so much again for joining us. And for those out there, like I said, I'm a self-discovery after alcohol coach. Go to the website untappedkeg.com, follow on Instagram untappedkeg. You can learn more about my own journey that you might be able to take some lessons from and implement it in your own life. And you know what? Let's try to be better tomorrow than we were today, because at least we don't make it. We tried. Love you, everybody. Thank you.